Welcome, everyone, to the podcast today. We are very excited to have Melissa McGovern. She is the brains and talent behind the Sober New Yorker podcast and Instagram. Melissa found her alcohol use ramping up during midlife, and she ended up with a really scary health diagnosis. And this led her to stop drinking altogether. So she decided to become a sober living coach and make it her life's mission to help other people take back control of their lives. So many people in our type C community struggle with alcohol and substance use issues. So, Melissa, we're super excited to hear about your journey with alcohol, even though you're not necessarily a type C personality. We're sure there are commonalities like using alcohol to numb emotional pain and just generally escape the stresses of life. It's not an easy thing to give up. And just a quick note on how Melissa and I met. So, for 40 years, I've struggled with this holy terror of public speaking. And I finally dragged myself to a Toastmasters meeting. Toastmasters is an organization where you just basically force yourself exposure therapy to get up and speak. And I was so lucky to hear Melissa give a speech one meeting, and then another meeting, we happened to sit near each other and struck up a conversation and realized that we are both podcasters. So, Melissa, you're so generous to come on and talk to us today. And I think maybe we'll just get started with hearing a little bit about your background and your backstory, and sort of what are some of the factors that led to your overuse of alcohol.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I am honored to be a part of your podcast today. Whenever I get an invite for a podcast to share my story, I am more than happy to contribute. I think it's a discussion that is really important, and especially for women of our age group, because the women that I work with, that is the group right now that comes to me. And so if we're talking about, so thank you for having me. Yes, thank you. So if we're talking about my story in particular, I always like to say at the very beginning, I never considered myself a moderate drinker ever. I was kind of that person that really did not have a shut-off valve. I opened a bottle of wine, and some people can have one glass and leave it on the counter for a week or two. My husband is like that. And as soon as I open a bottle, I have to drink the bottle. And because alcohol is a highly addictive substance, that just grew and grew over the years. So in times of stress, I have two children that are 18 and 22. And there were periods throughout their growing up. I first noticed it when my daughter was facing some really extreme mental health crisis in her middle school years, when I went to my doctor and my liver enzymes were elevated. And I had no idea what liver enzymes even were. They were slightly elevated, not too bad. And she said, take a break for 3 weeks and then come back. This might be alcohol related. So don't drink alcohol for 3 weeks. And I remember it very vividly because it was over the Labor Day weekend. And I thought, how does one not drink alcohol over Labor Day weekend when you're having a party and friends and all of that? But I did it, and I felt really good over those 3 weeks. And it was the first glimpse of what life could look like without alcohol. And it felt really good. I lost weight. I got more energy. I slept better just in 3 weeks. And I didn't go right back to it right away. I stayed there for a while. But your brain tells you, maybe I can moderate. So I would try to moderate again. And there's this cycle that happens when you remove it for a little while. Your brain says, but I'm okay. I can pick it up. And I can do this again. I'm going to be able to do it. And I refer to that as the mental gymnastics. I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm only going to drink on the weekends. I'm going to go out and I'm going to drink 1 glass of water in between drinks. It's a constant battle in your head of negotiating with yourself what that looks like. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So when the pandemic hit, actually before the pandemic hit, I had a good 4 months of sobriety. I had really gotten sick of my own shit, which is what it comes down to. I had found an online program that I kind of committed to. There were no meetings per se, but I was getting daily emails, and there was a Facebook group that I joined. But when the pandemic hit, it was all of that craziness in New York that made you just want to escape a little. And I lost my job as a home caregiver for an elderly woman. I did pick up a side hustle of making cloth face masks, which was really great and fulfilling, but it also made me feel like I needed to crack open some wine at the end of the day after sitting at my sewing machine for 7, 8 hours. So through the next, few years of the pandemic, things ramped up, and it really came to a head in March, the spring of 2023, the spring of 2022, when my best friend of 27 years, who had also struggled with alcohol, his body was shutting down because of it. And I knew that he struggled. He was very secretive about it. I didn't know the extent of it. I also didn't know the knowledge that I know now. I didn't know that having cellulitis was a sign of extreme alcohol use. And when I saw him in 2019, that's what he had. There were signs there that I just didn't know. And we talked on the phone regularly. I knew that he wasn't going to have a long life, but in April of 2022, he walked into the hospital to have a routine procedure done, which involved draining his abdomen of excess fluid because your kidneys and liver cannot process that. He was also HIV at the time, and he had sepsis and pneumonia, and he did not leave that hospital. He passed away 6 days later, and he was 54 years old. And he was my best friend. We moved to New York in 1995 together. We were actresses and actors, and he was the man of honor in my wedding. He saw both of my children come into the world. He was my best friend. And when you lose someone like that, it's a blow. Even though you know that it's going to happen eventually, it's a blow. And I thought, this surely must be the thing that is going to kickstart your sobriety again. And in fact, it was just the opposite. It was, I am going to do everything he couldn't do because he's not here. I'm going to eat all the food. I'm going to order all the drinks. I'm going to sit around and, doom scroll and watch all the shows and just do whatever the fuck I want to do because he can't do it. And I put on a face of I'm okay, and I wasn't. And I hated the way I looked in pictures. I knew that things were not, I saw the way I looked. It made me feel horrible, but it didn't make me feel bad enough to do anything about it. It made me feel like maybe this is the life that is ahead of me. Maybe I'm meant to have a mediocre life. And that thought scared me more than the actual picture staring back at me. So when I started to wake up in the summer of 2023, feeling like, what if I didn't get out of bed? I knew that it was because I was drinking too much. I had never had those feelings before. I've always been a really with it together woman. I've never had feelings of depression. I've had my mother, my good friends, T. Scott was his name. He went through all of that. And here it was coming for me. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I had a doctor's appointment in August of 23. I needed to have a prescription refilled. I went into that doctor's appointment knowing that I could confide in her because she knew my history. She knew my liver enzymes from 5 years ago were elevated. She knew that I had struggled. And I couldn't tell my husband. I couldn't tell my friends. You know, there's this thing that happens with women like us that have it all together. I wasn't losing my job. I wasn't having a DUI. I wasn't outward facing. I had all of my shit together. So no one was questioning me about my drinking habits. So if I came forward and said I needed help, it was a very hard thing to do. And it keeps a lot of women stuck like me, a lot. And so I went to the one person that I felt like I could trust, and that was my doctor. And she accepted me with open arms. I say her name on every podcast. That's Dr. Carmen Chitu of NYU Langone on Second Street in Manhattan. She's absolutely fabulous if you're looking for a doctor. She's got quite a wait list at this point, but she is absolutely incredible. And we sat down and we talked about it. And she didn't jump to any conclusions. She wanted to take my blood work. And I knew my blood work was going to be bad. I just did. I was drinking most nights, you know. I would pride myself on taking off Mondays and Tuesday nights, you know, that I wasn't drinking 7 nights a week. But some weeks I was. She took my blood work. I got that blood work the very next day. And I remember checking my chart on my phone, and my cholesterol was high. My blood pressure was high. I knew my weight was high because I passed my mirror every day and I did not like to look in my mirror. I hated my reflection. I used to lift up my shirt and grab my belly and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" I looked at my liver enzymes. They were through the roof. This is a number that lies between 5 and 40. There are 2 numbers, your AST and your ALT. My numbers were 195 and 322. They were out of control. She wrote in an email, "You must make drastic behavioral changes or I will put you on medication, a statin, blood pressure." I was almost diabetic. I was very close to diabetic range. I was 51 years old and something clicked in me. I accepted right then and there. I remember exactly where I was about to go into work with my senior lady. I was back working with her. And I said, "I don't want to be like everyone else. I do not want to be like every single other American in this country who is on medication to take care of their health diagnosis. And I am not a moderate drinker. I'm never going to be. I have played that game. It is exhausting." And I said, "That's it." And I got busy and I made up my mind right there that I am not drinking anymore. And for me, it wasn't going to be, you know, when a lot of people give up drinking, they give up drinking, which is great. That's one thing, but it's often, that's it. And maybe they start eating ice cream. They start, you know, there's a little bit of whatever supports them, and that's fine. That's fine. It wasn't going to be that way for me. I changed my diet. I started exercising. I gave up drinking. It was a trifecta because I hated the way I looked, and it had to be all encompassing. And so for the next 11 weeks, I listened to those sober podcasts. I listened to quit literature about quitting. This is a term we use in the sober community. Tons of books about about that subject. I made an appointment for 11 weeks later, and I'm a stubborn woman. I'm a very strong-willed woman. I went in exactly 11 weeks later, and I couldn't wait to see her. I could not wait to see her. I walked into that doctor's office, and I was down 27 pounds. I dropped 50 points, 50, off my cholesterol. My blood pressure was normal. My A1C, your glucose, below pre-diabetic, a whole 1.1 below what it was. I was a completely new woman. I had never felt better. And I walked out of that appointment. There was no part of me where in the past it might have been, whew, I did it. I proved to her I could do it. Now it's time to crack open a bottle of bubbly. Let's celebrate. There was no part of me. Now it was like, okay, this is my life. Now what do I do? How do I keep this going? And that's when I started to find community. I started to find online. I was not an AA subscriber. I knew that that wasn't going to work for me. Sober Instagram is an incredible place. I was already getting newsletters from different online groups. I found an outfit called Sober Sisters out of Boston. She had a retreat in Vermont. I signed up for that retreat. That was 7 months out. I was like, I can drive to Vermont. I'm going to do that retreat. I had no idea it came with this community that met twice a week virtually. I dove into that community. I turned on my camera on the first meeting. I shared. I just dove headfirst into sharing my story, talking, getting it out there. And it started to open up a whole world to me that I just ran with. I just completely ran with it. And I'm still there today.
Oh, Melissa, I can't tell you how much I'm so thankful for you to share all of this is such a powerful story. And I'm so I'm so appreciative of you to be as honest and open as you are. I think this is so unbelievably helpful for so many people to hear your story, to understand what you've gone through, and to see the steps that you took to get to a healthier place. I'm wondering, as you talked, um, obviously, our type C audience are people who struggle with taking on way too much. They can't say no, they take on other people's problems. They put on that facade of pleasantness. I'm fine. They often don't necessarily even know what is wrong or what they need. And many people in the community talk about turning to substances such as alcohol to escape, to numb out, to get away from all the fatigue and exhaustion from doing all the things that they do for other people that they feel they need to do. So I would love to hear if this is something at all that you identify with, or even parts of it, or if you feel people along the way that you've come in contact with in your journey in the community, if this is a type of person that you see frequently or hear about frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy. It's so easy to not deal and to turn off what you are supposed to be dealing with. But the thing is, it doesn't turn it off. It's still there. Something really hard could be going on in my life, and I could drink that night, and it could make me feel better for 20 minutes. That's the reality of drinking. It's a 20-minute escape, and then you are chasing it. You're chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. And the next morning you wake up feeling so much shame, so much remorse, so much embarrassment. And you spend the rest of that day, the rest of the coming days, doing whatever you feel like you should do to make everyone else feel okay because of that shame, because of that embarrassment. Putting those pieces in place because you feel like an asshole, really. And that is just absolutely no place to live. And it never takes away that feeling. And when you get right down to it, those feelings are always going to be there. Like, we have a saying in alcohol-free sobriety world: the best part about getting rid of our substance use is feeling your feelings. The worst part of getting rid of your substance is feeling your feelings, because you really have to sit with it. You really have to be like, okay, this is coming in. How is this making me feel? And you have to let it in. You have to get curious about it. What are my next steps? How am I going to handle this? And that is really hard to do. And a lot of it comes down to boundaries. Boundaries is a huge part of what we have to put in place, how we have to address our relationships with people. Because if we don't do that, because the people that are being served by us not putting those boundaries in place are the people taking advantage of us. And they're gonna be upset by that. We're being kept small when we are drinking, when we're we're using drugs and alcohol, we're using things by not standing up for ourselves. And when we decide to move that out of our lives, it is super hard to do. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of perseverance and a lot of support. And it's not easy. It's literally one day at a time. And people are going to not like it. They are not going to like it. It's something you have to do, because your problems they're not going to go away just because you choose to numb them out for one night. They're just going to make it worse. They're going to be there, and you're going to feel like shit on top of them.
I think it's hard for type C people who are struggling with alcohol to, first of all, we have a hard time saying no to anything. So when you're out with people and you feel like you're the one that's got to be the one that's making sure everybody's happy and they're having a good time, and for you to be the one that says, no, I'm not going to have a drink tonight because for whatever reason, maybe you have a big day tomorrow at work, maybe you are trying to cut back. I know in my journey I found that very difficult, to be the one who's not drinking and saying, I'm doing this thing to take better care of myself and to focus on my own needs, because you feel like I'm the party pooper, or I really need to be the social glue that can kind of keep this thing going, whatever it is. So just love to hear a little bit about that as part of your journey, or maybe some of the people that you work with.
Yeah. I mean, I say right off the bat, you have to put yourself first, period. Like, this is not about your husband, your kids, your mom and dad. This is all about you. And it's going to come off as selfish to people, and people might think that in a certain way. And you have to get to the point where you don't care. You do not care. You have to have a solid list of whys. You have to have, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? For me, my why, immediately, my health. Like, I was 51 years old. If I do not take charge of my health right now, in my 50s, I am not going to live to be 60, 70, 80, beyond. That is just not going to happen. You do not see elderly people that are obese. You do not see elderly people that are alcoholics. You don't see people living that long. I had a grandfather die at age 64 from alcohol use disorder. I had an uncle that died at 48 of the same thing. My friend died at age 54. Like, this is a fact. So this is about you, and it's going to piss some people off. So if you're out, and another thing, honestly, people don't care. They do not care. When you're out in a group and if you're the one not drinking and someone gives you a hard time about it, that is a direct reflection on their own shit with alcohol. 100. Because the people that will support you or don't care, they don't have a problem with alcohol. They don't. When someone has something in their glass, that's all they care about is what's in their glass. They don't care about what's in your glass. And that's a real big misconception when you first remove alcohol from your life. Oh my God, I'm going to be out. What are people going to think? I'm not drinking. They don't care. They really don't. And if they do, it's because they're assessing their own relationship with it.
There's so many helpful tips that you've already added, but I just am wondering for our audience and for anyone else who's new, who's listening, are there certain steps or strategies or what do you suggest as the start of the process? What are things that you feel are really crucial to start this journey for yourself, for people, who want to be on this journey?
I always say, I think community is huge. They say the opposite of addiction is connection, whether that is, sober Instagram is a incredible place where people can follow sober accounts and just kind of lurk in the background. I did that with my personal account for years. I watched these sober accounts and I thought, oh my God, like this woman looks exactly like me and she's doing it. There are apps. There's Reframe app. There are these apps where you can join for a very nominal amount and you can, look into it. You can even hop on a virtual meeting and just keep your camera off. I remember the first time I did, I thought, my God, what the hell is this? People get on a Zoom meeting with people they don't know and everyone's talking about being sober and how much their mom is triggering them and this and that. And I couldn't believe it. And now not only am I part of that group, but I lead a group meeting and, like just a total 180 of where I was. That's a big thing. I say, get a solid routine. Get a routine, a morning, evening routine that involves not waking up, scrolling on your phone, getting out of bed, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, splashing cold water on your face, getting some exercise, move your body. Exercise is a huge thing. You don't have to take up, marathon running, but walking is a big thing. Listening to podcasts, reading a little quit lit. The sober podcast world is a really big, important start for people because when you first start, you think you're the only one doing this, that you're the only one that has this problem. And you start listening to this podcast, and there are lots of them. And you hear these stories, and they sound just like yourself, exactly like yourself. And you're not alone. And it really sinks home that if this gal can do it, I can do it too. Write down 10 things you can do that do not involve picking up a drink when you have that craving or that trigger come in. Take a walk around the block, do some jumping jacks, put on your favorite song. It takes 20 minutes to ride out a craving. Any crave, that goes for food, that goes for a cigarette, that goes for anything. 20 minutes. 20 minutes is nothing. I say, put on your favorite playlist, clean your cupboards, think outside the box for 20 minutes. And, these are the things that I initially, like one of my first meetings when I meet with a client, we brainstorm about these things. And you'd be surprised about the things you can think of. Sometimes I have clients that come back to me with 20 or 30 things they can do. And also calling, asking for help. Asking for help is probably the number one. And the hardest. Like if there's that voice in you that says something isn't right, Who can I talk to about this? It could be a stranger on Instagram. I have gotten many DMs from people that don't know me, and what can I do? And I will always, always answer a stranger back with a few words of advice.
I think that's wonderful because if there's one thing that type C people can't do, it's ask for help,
Mhm.
as we are so worried about creating a burden for someone else. And so the idea that there is this massive community out there on Instagram, and there's probably a Reddit community too, and all these people that are kind of going through the same thing and are more than willing to help, I think is just so lovely.
Anna, can
Um,
I jump in for one sec? I just wanted to say that as Melissa, you were talking, I was just thinking of two things that would be really helpful also for anyone who's listening who is on this or trying to start this journey. Anna and I had an amazing psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Judd Brewer on the podcast several podcasts ago, and he wrote an amazing book called The Craving Mind. And all of his work is in addictions, expanded to also eating and anxiety. But he talks about urge surfing. And I think that one of the things you were talking about is there are so many things you can do to help, but ultimately, a willingness to sit with what shows up and not leave it is really, not have to push it away, I think is ultimately a tool that we all
Yes.
can benefit from. It is very, very, very hard. But he talks a lot about that and he goes over strategies and ways to help you with that. And I also had a patient who struggled with actually cannabis addiction. And he used an app called I Am Sober. And I'm very, very critical of what recommendations and treatment and advice that people are given. And I thought this app was so well done and so all of the advice I really valued. I thought it was very much in line with kindness, compassion, a lot of this urge surfing, a lot of thinking about what is the drinking taking you away from, what do you want to move towards. It was a really great app. So I just wanted to put in a plug for those two things.
Yeah, I have the I Am Sober app, and there's a community on there. A lot of these apps have a community. Addressing the help issue, help is a muscle you have to use, just like your biceps or you're doing squats. You have to work it exactly like that muscle. We ask for help. We're not going to install our washing machine without asking for help. I go to the grocery store. I'm like 6 feet tall. I live in a neighborhood with a lot of very short Latina women and men. And when I go to the grocery store, I help people get things off high shelves all the time. If they didn't ask for help, they wouldn't get their groceries. You have to ask for help. But when it comes to something super vulnerable, we have such a hard time with it. We have to make it a daily habit. We have to lose the stigma around asking for help. And to your point, Corey, when these urges come in, I always say to my clients, you cannot push them away because they won't go away. Have them in, invite them in, give them a seat, ask them, what are you doing here? What brings you here today? Let's talk about it. Get curious. What are you trying to teach me today? Like, I've had that come up in my life now, even, 2 years sober. I've had something come in that I couldn't quite get out of my head. And I've come back to it, dissect it. And sure enough, I've come up with, oh, that's why it was there. I found out the answer. And I'm so glad I did. Like, I kept getting curious about it. I kept looking for the answer. And it finally revealed itself. You just have to keep at it. You have to keep getting curious about it.
I love all of this. And I just want to say, I wish that I lived closer to you because I would do all of my grocery shopping with you as a 5'2" person who can't reach anything. So thank you from the short community for helping out. We've got to wrap up on time here, but we love to close with just a few things that we regularly ask everyone who comes on our podcast. The first one is, what do you do for fun and relaxation? We're always trying to generate more ideas for people that kind of have a hard time making time for themselves. So, what are your rejuvenating activities? And then, are there any books that you absolutely swear by that you think our community could benefit from?
Well, my latest thing, I mean, I love Toastmasters. Like, I found that, which is super fun. And because it's summertime, I haven't been there a whole lot, but I am going to get back to it. I'm working on my second speech, actually. So there's that. I love getting up in front of people and talking. But besides that, I have found the most incredibly fun dance class, adult beginner dance class in Chinatown on Monday and Wednesday nights down on Pell Street. This gal who used to be a Broadway dancer, and she's retired now, but she teaches this class and it is so great. She makes everyone feel like they're dancing on a Broadway stage. No pressure. All types of people show up, all different body types. And it is just the biggest party for 1 hour every night. And it just lights up my soul. It brings me so much joy. And that is my jam right now for dance, for what really makes me happy. As far
Okay, can
as
I just interject and
yeah,
say
yeah.
we're so doing that because Corey and I both love dance. So let's make a date. And I also would say that I'm glad that you like Toastmasters because I find it absolute torture, but I'm going to stay with it. I'm bound and determined. I'm doing it. Okay, sorry, I interrupted. What about books?
So books, I wrote down 3 here. There's a great book. It's sobriety related, but not necessarily. It's called Push Off From Here, Laura McKowen. The subtitle is 9 Essential Truths to Get You Through Sobriety and Everything Else. It's great. It's like, you know, I know this is my thing. It sucks that it's my thing, but it's my thing and I got to deal with it. And I give it to every one of my clients that comes to me. They get a little welcome bundle, and that is a non-negotiable book they must read. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. You guys know this book? He talks about your inner thermostat. When you get to be really good about all the things, the good things that are going on in your life, and you're getting good, 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 good. And then you start to question them and you start to self-sabotage because it feels so good. So you get uncomfortable and you chop yourself down to where it feels better instead of pushing through and getting, into the upper limit where you really, your magical zone. Great book. And also, because this is one of my favorite words, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. Because we all need to stop doubting our greatness and start living an awesome life. And I seriously have never used that word more than I have in the past 2 years.
These are all such great ideas. Well, Melissa, I cannot tell you how much I just think your story, your journey has been so unbelievably helpful. And so many of the tips really, I think, are things that we agree with and are so in just agreement that these are really important steps that we all need to start taking, depending on what the things that we are struggling with. So before we wrap up, just want to quickly say, what is your Instagram handle? What's your podcast called? Where can people find you if they want to look into coaching?
So super easy. Across the board, I am the Sober New Yorker. I am the Sober New Yorker Instagram. My podcast is the Sober New Yorker, and my website, thesobernewyorker.com. So reach out anywhere you find me, and I would love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been an absolute pleasure. And we will report back on our dance date.
I would love that. Let's go. It's super fun. You guys would love it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right.
Thank you so much for having
Take
me.
care,
It's
everyone.
been a pleasure. Thank you.